struggle with this because I feel really old when I say this. I definitely don't think the younger generation, most of the younger generation, have the same work ethic as what we did when we first started out. But then I started working at the age of 13, and you didn't have to stay in education until you were 18. And I think pushing them to stay in the education until they're 18 doesn't allow them to start to get used to the work life at a younger age. That's number one. But number two is it's not everybody. I wouldn't want to put a blanket on it. It's not all younger generation.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I actually equally find the older generation can be difficult as well. You know,
I call them generation brick wall. It's literally like, no, not doing that, doing that, because
they're just,
I've done it that way for so long.
Yeah.
Surely I can't be asked to do more than what I'm doing. So it's definitely. I mean, I think I agree. I think we can't generalize everybody. But there is an element of, as an owner, and we've seen it again and again in the last few years, of having that they're not committing, they're not doing extra hours, they don't want to do, the hours they are contracted for. Someone's phoning sick all the time. So it's it does happen where you do, in the back of your mind, yes, maybe I am getting older. It wasn't like that before.
Yeah. Times have definitely changed, and I think more dramatically so in the last, say, 4 years. But I was definitely starting to experience it towards the latter part of my ownership, that, the team were pushing for more evenings off, more Saturdays off. And obviously in our industry it's very difficult because those tend to be your busiest times because people come and see you after work and so on. Not all the time, but it tends to be. But now I think, for me personally, I think there's no such thing as a full-time worker anymore.
I agree. That's quite difficult to find.
I think it is. I think people don't want the organised full-time hours that you used to have. It was very, you walk into a job and they'd say, right, it's
40 hours.
Or it's 9 till 6. 4 days a week, and on the fifth day you work a Saturday 9 till 5 or whatever. It's very bish bash bosh, wasn't it? And very straightforward. Whereas now I think it's like, some people, I actually just want to do 3 days a week, I only want to do 1 Saturday a month, and so on. And I think now we need to think of our teams as more of a mixture, and that they all combine to full times, because
I think there's definitely an element of the owner having to juggle the rota around what is presented to them. And I can think of 2 owners who went from a team of 4 full-timers to 12 part-timers. But there is an element, I feel, that I'm thinking of an owner in particular at the moment who's struggling with that generation gap between the manager who's been there for a long time, the staff members who are fairly new, fairly young, quite cliquey, some of them going out together, some of them are, there's this kind of real culture shift where the manager feels that she's repeating herself constantly, there's always something that's not happening, and we can blame it on the generation for sure. I personally think, do we blame them for wanting a work-life balance that we didn't have? They've lived through things like the pandemic or whatever that we've never had to. So they're going to look at life differently. What future do they want? And I think I can't blame them. And I think as a leader, you have to adapt to that. But the clashes or the clashes of culture that there is within the team, because some of younger, let's say, generation are on a different wavelength, let's say, that's not new either.
No.
But maybe it feels even more so now, because it feels that the demand is constant.
Yeah, and yes, it is, you're right, their demand is constant. And I feel as though sometimes as well there's a bit of entitlement there.
Yeah, definitely.
As to, I shouldn't have to do that, or I shouldn't have to work that. For me, if I had a clinic or a salon now, I would be tightening up even more than ever my onboarding process.
Yeah.
So I would be asking, not saying what necessarily. I obviously know in my head what I'm looking for and what I need, but I want to know from that person what they're offering and that is sustainable for them. You know, so if they're saying, oh yeah, fine, I can do every Saturday, okay, but this is a long-term job I'm looking to secure. Further down the line, you know, have you thought about further down the line, because I do need this role to fit into those hours. So I feel like we just need to be a little bit more, and also we can say, look, we like to be flexible, but these are the limitations in which I can be, and the business obviously has to come.
Yeah, I think it goes from the onboarding in terms of the perhaps, especially nowadays with the changes of potential legislation on HR point of view, in the 3 months probation, and when we are at the HR agency, they very much said 3 months is enough. I personally think is enough. If you do a 6 months, 9 months probation, I feel like you're giving birth in a way. The other side is within 3 months whether that person's going to be a good fit within the culture of the team, I feel. And you have to be even more so on top of it. For example, on the 6 weeks probation, you know, halfway through probation, and be perhaps a little bit more cutthroat into, you know, in France, I'm thinking as an example, they only have 1 month's probation that they can extend to 2 months. And like my clients in France are saying, you know, it's easier to divorce your husband than dismiss a staff member. But what I felt in that culture, although it's a lot harder to perhaps dismiss someone eventually, they haven't got the flexibility, and I think the UK is starting to get a little bit like that, and that's what's scaring the owner of like, am I doing the right thing by employing someone or whatever. But I guess that's another subject in a way. But I feel like the way they're dealing with that month's probation is a lot more cutthroat. I think that perhaps if you know that there's going to be trouble brewing or something's not fitting right, there's no reason why you shouldn't trust your guts and kind of looking at what you can do. Ultimately, the new generation, shall we say, although we don't like calling it the Gen Z or whatever, we don't necessarily want to put a name to it, but the newer generation are going to have different demands, just like we had different demands to our parents, just like my dad with his dad had different demands. So that's just not new, I don't think.
No, it's just time moving on.
Moving on. So what can we do as an owner that perhaps there are some owners that aren't really doing quite well with the newer generation, but they're fitting perhaps, I feel, what are they looking for? Is it the training? Is it maybe being a little bit slower in the way we're handling certain types of characters and not getting them to be suddenly a skin therapist because they haven't got the capacity right now? I think it's that kind of goes back to the individual development plan, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. We really enjoy sharing our thoughts on various topics. If you have a burning question, simply comment below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button to keep up to date with each new episode.